Home sweet home as the Texans finished up a Sunday night practice after getting back from Pittsburgh in the second preseason game. The practice saw Dr. Stroud in action, a couple of returns from injury, and 2 debuts of players that had yet to practice in training camp. We'll talk about that, plus DeMeco Ryans on Cam Akers. Let's start with C.J. Stroud. Oh, man. How does he make such hard stuff look easy? I felt bad for Jalen Petrie at one point. Petrie had C.J. Stroud dialed in. He had him in his sights, and he jumped and leaped to try to knock the ball away from C.J. Stroud. And Stroud kind of moved his body, contorted his arm, and just whoop right around Petrie into the hands of Stefon Diggs, who was waiting. He carried that thing and took off with it, and that was a nice big play for the offense. And then if you've watched The Karate Kid, you know that the crane kick, when done correctly, cannot be defended, okay? Well, the Texans' out routes, when done correctly, cannot be defended, even when Derek Stingley is in defense of the player. Nico Collins and Tank Dell both successful on that out route against Derek Stingley. Paging Mr. Stingley, Dr. Stroud will see you now for surgery. And Stroud was so good. The Tank Dell play better than Nico Collins. When Nico Collins, we've seen Nico Collins do an out route, catch the ball from C.J. Stroud a ton, okay? Very elementary, took care of their business. But the Tank Dell one, there's a little bit of pressure. Stroud kind of maneuvers within the pocket, which is one of his best attributes. And he maneuvers in the pocket, and he lets it go to Dell over on the sideline. And Dell has beat Derek Stingley, and he comes down with it, and he's got to go up there and get it. And he's got probably, he's got like this much room here, okay, to get his feet down in there between defenders, the sideline, all that kind of stuff. Like literally the size of a little small book. He's got like that much room and 2 feet in. Like it's no problem. I mean, Dell and Collins and Diggs each had a catch, and then Stroud hit Cade Stover for a big one. And man, Cade Stover was rumbling. It looked like the defense kind of lost him, but 87, he came down with that thing and took off. And Stover, his receiving is maybe a little bit ahead of where I thought it was going to be for him as a rookie. And, oh, by the way, he didn't even act like a rookie. And DeMeco Ryans said after practice he forgets that Stover's a rookie sometimes with how impressive he's been so far. Getting me excited for the future of 87 at the tight end position. I mean, you start thinking about 87 and 86 Dalton Schultz, and then you add in Brevin Jordan a little bit, and that tight end room gets pretty fun. It's been a couple of years since that tight end room has been a fun tight end room. Okay, last year was pretty nice. It could be even better this year, but there were some lean tight end years for the Houston Texans. So it's nice to maybe get excited about that tight end room. And, of course, they can be the attending physicians to Dr. Stroud when he's out there being as surgical as he was. I mentioned a couple of guys were back from injury and that there were some debuts. Hey, Joe Mixon back from injury. He practiced a little bit to begin training camp, but he hadn't practiced since. He was back out there. A little bit of a light day for Mixon. He went through some of the reps in the drills. He didn't do any team stuff, but he flew out of the bubble when it was time to stretch, went over to the crowd and was pumping them up. I mean, he was having a blast. He was out there celebrating with Cade Stover after Stover had his big touchdown run in one of the team sessions. Joe Mixon back at practice. 2 debuts to talk about. One really good and one not as good. The really good one, Laramie Tunsil, and he looks to be in the best shape ever. I mean, I've covered Laramie Tunsil for a few years now. I see him out there in practice. We see him in the games. He looks to be in the best shape of his life. He was out there, practiced most of the practice. It took a couple of snaps off there at the back. It looked like that was by design, kind of ramp him up as he's coming back from that off-season knee surgery. But Tunsil was a brick wall. Nothing got by him. I mean, he just locked everybody that went up against him up right there at that left tackle spot. It really helped solidify that left side of the line. They got out there and ran the ball a couple of times to the left side with a little bit of success. It looked like they were moving some earth there on the left side. So it's really good to see Laramie Tunsil back. And the debut for training camp that wasn't as good, Christian Harris made his training camp debut, but he left in the middle with a trainer. That's a TBD situation for Christian Harris, just to see, hey, was that a precautionary thing that he left? Did he re-injure something? I'm not worried yet about Christian Harris, but if he re-injured something and it was a hamstring that he was dealing with, he maybe re-injured that, it all of a sudden gets pretty tenuous as you're a month away from the season opener in Indianapolis against the Colts. Kamari Lassiter and Will Anderson, the other notables that didn't practice or weren't practicing at all, actually, and they worked out on the side. They're close to getting back, I would think. I think you see 14 and 51 here back pretty soon. I mentioned a couple of other returns. Brevin Jordan was back on the field, as was Des King. So some good with Joe Mixon back and working his way back in. Some great with Laramie Tunsil back taking care of business, and some not so great there with Christian Harris taking care of his business as well. A moment here for my friends at draftkits.co. Draftkits.co, 10% off your entire order. And use the code CODY24. That includes their big, beautiful, giant, gorgeous custom draft boards. That's right. You can put your own images on the back of the draft board and put your league name, a spot for champions, or a slogan if your league's got it. Just look at mine. Look at this beautiful, fantastic draft board. My league, drafting for the 15th year in a row. We took it to the next level at draftkits.co on this one. It's a huge draft board. It's vinyl. It's reusable for year after year use. Those stickers are big. You can read them. We had a guy have to draft off his phone on vacation. He can read the stickers from the video that we set up. It's gorgeous. It's easy to do at draftkits.co. Plan ahead just a little bit to make sure you have the best in-person draft that you've ever had. And you got that beautiful draft board for years to come. Draftkits.co. Draftkits.co. Use the code CODY24 for 10% off your entire order. I'll talk specifically about the Laramie Tunsil return and him being back, and he looked really good, and he just stoned everybody there at left tackle. But his return presented something that I felt like the Texans absolutely had to have happen in training camp at some point, an opportunity for Blake Fisher. Fisher had been filling in for Tunsil at left tackle, which had kept him from repping any other spot along the offensive line. Well, Titus Howard didn't practice. That left a right tackle spot open. And sure enough, the Texans put Blake Fisher out there at right tackle. And look, Danielle Hunter just ran past him, through him, whatever you want to say, for a sack at one point. But he had a couple of nice wins against Hunter. And he doesn't have as much trouble when it's not Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson out there attacking him from the edge. I mean, Fisher has done a really nice job. And the return of Laramie Tunsil made me think, okay, are we going to get Blake Fisher at right tackle if he's the swing tackle, if he's the first guy off the bench, if Titus Howard or Laramie Tunsil can't play, are we getting Blake Fisher? And we certainly did, and he looked pretty good at that right tackle spot. Of course, right tackle is where he played in college at Notre Dame. He started as a left tackle, got hurt, and then he played a bunch of right tackle for Notre Dame. He's been playing left tackle up to this point, done pretty good, and then played right tackle today in the practice. So that was good to see. Really liked that from Fisher, and that is something that the Texans have to be solid on, because that's why you drafted him. He was drafted to be the backup tackle for this team, and he's going to be the swing guy. If there's no Tunsil, it's Fisher. If there's no Howard, it's Fisher. If there's no Tunsil or Howard, pray. That's kind of what I would say about that. I'm sure a guy that did a lot of praying for health in his career is feeling pretty good about how he's been doing. That's Cam Akers. Akers, of course, has had multiple Achilles injuries that have required surgery. He was out there as a free agent, showed up after Mixon's injury in training camp. And I initially thought Akers was just going to be a camp body. As soon as Joe Mixon's back, see you later, Cam Akers. I had low expectations for a guy that had struggled to be healthy in the NFL level, despite what Akers have been able to put together a couple of different times as a running back, for the Rams, and then a little bit there for the Vikings before he was a free agent. I mean, he was a free agent for a reason, right? Well, I mean, listen to D'Amico Ryans talk about this guy. We've seen the performance of Cam Akers. Tell me this isn't a guy that D'Amico Ryans feels like he trusts to go out there and run the football for the Houston Texans.
I've seen a guy, first off, we know he's done it. I've gone against Cam a lot, and I've seen the plays that he's been able to make. So is he surprising me? No, he's not surprising me, but he seems like he's getting back into shape, getting back into football shape, and he's making plays that he's made prior in his career. It's exciting to see him. I know just just shows when guys maximize their opportunity. And I think he's a guy who's taking advantage of that, coming into camp late. But he's picked up on things very quickly. He's very sharp mentally, and that's allowed him to step in, I think, and really showcase his talents of what he's been able to do. And the biggest thing is him, right, making guys miss. I think it's, when you're playing a running back position, you can make defenders miss. Like Cam just has a savvy way of doing that, and that allows him to continue to press forward and gain yards for us.
I mean, that's a glowing review of a guy that probably really did start as a camp body and then maximized his opportunities, as DeMeco Ryans talked about, makes guys miss, can catch the football out of the backfield, and he just, I think he looks better than Dameon Pierce. I mean, I'd make Cam Akers running back 2 or running back 3 if you felt better about Dare Ogunbowale if you're the Texans, but I'd put Akers in the mix from a guy that I believed was just a camp body to making the most and seeing some of that Rams Cam Akers from Akers, and maybe some more opportunities for him here pretty soon. Could be a nice little find for Nick Caserio and DeMeco Ryans for this running back room that hasn't really impressed to this point. Even Joe Mixon, I mean, he's only had practiced a couple of times. Running back room hadn't impressed. They got to run the football better. If Akers is a guy that can give you something, and oh, by the way, he works kickoff returns too. If Akers can give you something, put Akers on the team. Draft pick investment to Dameon Pierce a couple of years ago, be damned. Make Cam Akers the backup if he needs to be the backup. If he needs to be the third guy behind Dare Ogunbowale, make him the third guy and figure everything else out behind him. But I'd put Cam Akers on the team if cutdown day was fast approaching. It's not real far away, but it's certainly not close. There's still room to get a lot of work done. Maybe we'll see some more from Cam Akers, maximizing his opportunities. Those are the observations from training camp's Sunday night practice. That was the 14th practice for the Houston Texans here in training camp. They'll have 3 more this week, a game against the Giants on Saturday, and I would expect a handful of starters to play in that one and maybe play just a tiny bit more than they did against the Pittsburgh Steelers as well. Appreciate you watching the video. Hope you enjoy it. I can't wait until we talk Texans again soon.